The following podcast is brought to you by the Johners Podcasting Network, found exclusively at wrestlingwithjohners.com.
As you have just seen, it has the interview as the Johners Podcasting Network, and I am honoured to be joined by Johners. Thank you, Johners, for coming on. I really do appreciate it.
My pleasure. I like the little intro video. Like I say, I've been playing that at the beginning of my interviews for the past 3 or 4 years, and always a pleasure to see it on somebody else's show. But Jordan, thank you so much for inviting me. This is a real thrill.
This is a honour to have you on. We've have this in the pipeline since just before Christmas. So thank you for coming on and giving me your time. I do appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. No, I've got all the time in the world for you. Like I say, I think what you've been doing lately, content-wise, a lot of your guests have really, really impressed me. Your interviews, have been absolutely stellar. So I think, you're setting the standard and you're growing and you're improving all the time. So, looking forward to talking about wrestling.
Slowly but surely trying to make that name, grow like you have been doing for the past 5 years, which is, I can say, you and your guests that you have had have been. I mean, I watched there's just one that pops to mind, which I love, and I think she's unbelievable, is Lizzie Evo.
Oh,
that's one that I like, and is my favourite of yours, Lizzie.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, 2023 was a really good year for me. And like I say, I started this over 5 years ago, November 2018. But the guests, the quality of the guests seems to get higher and higher and higher. And in 2023, I was blessed to have spoken to the people that I did and have the conversations that I did. And I'm sure we'll get into all of it. But Lizzie was definitely up there as one of my favorite guests as well. Very, very popular with my audience. Somebody I'd love to get on the show again in a couple of years' time to have a bit of a recap. But yeah, I mean, 2024 has been a busy year already. Last night I did my 5th interview of January, I'm already working on my lineup for April. I know we've had 1 or 2 conversations about kind of lineups and how far ahead I tend to work, but I'm already speaking to guests about April. In fact, I've got a couple booked in, I'm just thrilled to be doing what I'm doing, and it's kind of turned me into the person that I am today that I wasn't 5 years ago.
Yeah, where did it all start from, the journey of wanting to do it? Like set up the Johners Podcast Network and
wow, I mean, just starting the show, Wrestling with Johners. I mean, let's say that's just ticked over its 5th anniversary, it's a long story really, but essentially I think it comes from my love of pro wrestling, which started in the early 90s and probably even further back, which I'm sure we'll discuss. Following my nan's love for pro wrestling in the 1980s, but having this constant kind of love affair with professional wrestling in my life, and then obviously podcasting became a thing. I don't know when, but I think I started listening to podcasts probably early 2010s, 2012, 2013, something. And you had your familiar faces like, the Stone Cold Steve Austin podcast, Jericho's podcast, and 1 or 2 others. I listened to some indie podcasts like Solo Monster Sounds Off and Flash Morgan Webster's, My Wrestling Friends podcast. And I think the way ignited it for me, if I'm honest, was when Conrad Thompson and Bruce Pritchard started Something to Wrestle back in 2016. And I was already a huge fan of wrestling podcasts at that point. But 2016 kind of, the stories they were telling, especially the insight that Bruce would have in the business and the people that he'd worked with, being, the right-hand man to Vince McMahon and all them others for so many years, having these decades and decades worth of stories and people that he'd worked with. And honestly, I wasn't familiar with Bruce Pritchard at the time, the name Bruce Pritchard, because I suppose I probably wasn't that familiar with a lot of the kind of inside terminology, or maybe I was the inside terminology, but a lot of the people that work behind the scenes. And I only really knew him as Brother Love. So I'm thinking, well, what's Brother Love? What stories has he got to tell? But it turns out that he was, like I say, a very important person in the business. Vince McMahon's right-hand man. So all these wonderful stories, and that just really captured my imagination more than any of the others. And strangely, it was following a trip to WrestleMania in 2018. So I was out there in New Orleans, 2018. That was the year when you had Ronda Rousey's debut and Kurt Angle, Daniel Bryan's return, and the incredible NXT takeover New Orleans, and just a whole 5 days that I'll never forget. A truly, wonderful, life-changing journey. But of course, I downloaded about 20 podcast episodes to listen to on the flight over there and on the flight back. And obviously, there weren't much time to listen to podcasts while I was out there because I was at wrestling shows all the time or enjoying myself down Bourbon Street. Yeah, and it was that journey that inspired me even further to start my own. I thought, yeah, I can do this. I've got nearly 30 years of wrestling fandom. I'm quite knowledgeable. I can put a sentence or two together. And more than anything, I'm passionate about professional wrestling. I think regardless of whatever podcast you start, if you've got a passion for something, then yeah, like I say, just do something passionate about. Start a podcast on a topic that you really, really love. And as far as I was concerned, my passion was professional wrestling. So bearing in mind that WrestleMania was in the April and I didn't start the show until November, this next 4, 5, 6 months was really just mulling it over. Should I, shouldn't I? Should I, shouldn't I? I had a cheap laptop. I bought myself a very, very basic microphone headset from Amazon, and downloaded some free software that would record, whatever I had to say. And coincidentally, my episode 1 and the subsequent episodes of Wrestling with Johners focused on NXT UK. Episode 1 of Wrestling with Johners coincided with NXT UK on the network. So my show was a review show to start off with, and it was a review show for best part of maybe a couple of years, just covering NXT UK, and then I branched out to the Black and Gold brand and AEW when that came on board, WWF pay-per-views, WWE pay-per-views, New Japan pay-per-views, AEW pay-per-views. So it was more of a review show. And then I got a promoter that reached out and said, "Oh, do you fancy interviewing this person?" It's like, "Oh, okay then." And then I interviewed the promoter, and I interviewed some wrestlers that he kind of hooked up for me. And I've got to be honest with you, full transparency. The first year or so of Wrestling with Johners was absolutely shocking. And it was a good job that I weren't going live back then, because they would have been absolutely awful. But yeah, like I say, got bitten by the bug, would have guests coming on the show to help me review shows, an occasional interview. And then I think it was around 2020 during lockdown when the world had shut down, but wrestlers were at your disposal, that I really got into interviewing, because like I say, everybody and their auntie started a podcast in 2020 when there was nothing else to do, and all the wrestlers were kind of free and available and happy to come on your shows, and that helped to kind of sharpen my skills as an interviewer, as a podcaster. I think I started doing video interviews, so like this, but just using Skype, for example, in 2020. While a lot of people were starting to use Zoom, I was still using Skype. And then 2021, I started using the same platform that you're using now, StreamYard. And from 2021 through till now, so getting on for exactly 3 years, I've been using StreamYard, and every single interview that I have done in the last 3 years, you're probably looking at maybe a couple of hundred interviews, have been live, which once again really kind of tests your skills and tests your what's the word? You kind of, I don't know, you're flying by the seat of your pants when you're doing interviews, because you do have to have your prep down. You produce it very much more like a TV show when you're live, because I'm flashing up images, doing the intro video, the outro video, and it is, it's almost like doing a live TV show. And but just celebrated 5 years of Wrestling with Johners. I've been blessed to have spoken to some of the biggest and best names in the industry. I think my passion in the last 3 or 4 years has really been independent wrestling, and more specifically British independent wrestling. So really shone a massive light on British indie stars, British indie wrestling, and wrestlers and companies, promoters, everybody in between. And like I say, I've kind of garnered myself a nice little reputation as being kind of a bit of a, an authority of British independent wrestling. And like I say, I'm kind of blessed that people watch and listen and enjoy my content, and that I've kind of lived, some of my wrestling fandom dreams in the last few years, and I feel like I'm just getting started, Jordan.
I mean, the way I would see it, so your YouTube channel, you are coming close to 1,000 subscribers.
Yeah,
I can see that happening by the end of February. So
I
it's
hope
going
so.
pretty quick.
Yeah,
I mean,
the thing is, it's been a slow grind. It has been a slow grind, and I could have taken a couple of shortcuts to get them numbers up quicker. I could have, interviewed more former WWE stars or more, international stars. I could have done that, which tend to get the clicks. I could have, turned my show into more of a shoot podcast, get a bit of controversy, get some mudslinging and things like that. But I've always tried to keep all my interviews very, very positive, very, very professional, very respectful to the guests. Like I say, tried to focus solely on indie stars. So I'm kind of like presenting a bit of a niche within a niche, really, because like I say, a lot of shows focus on the big mainstream products, WWE, AEW, and try to interview a lot of the bigger names from overseas, but I focus on independent wrestling, British independent wrestling. So a bit of an uphill struggle, because not everybody wants to, or not everybody are familiar with the people that I interview, let's be honest. But I try to shine a little bit of a light on A, the more familiar names, and B, the less familiar names as well. I probably get just as much enjoyment out of interviewing some of the younger, less well-known stars than I do people that have been in the business 5, 10, 15 years. And it's great to hear their stories. But I try to I purposefully put together my monthly lineups with a mixture of experienced talent that's got a really good journey and a good story to talk about, and maybe inexperienced stars that I can shine a little bit of a light on, and talk about their love, their passion, and sometimes they give a slightly more overwhelming story than what you might expect. But yeah, I absolutely love what I'm doing, and the YouTube channel, as you quite rightly mentioned, getting ever so close to 1,000 subscribers, and when I reach that milestone, I will be very, very happy. And like I say, I'm about 30 away, so hopefully I can do that before too long, and then start the next chapter of Wrestling with Johners, and hopefully take it as far as I possibly can.
Yeah, I mean, you're only just going to go up. We kind of crossed paths back in December 2018 when Cody Rhodes came over, and it was Fight Forever Wrestling did a show on in Bristol, but I didn't quite see you then, and I didn't quite know who you were. But then,
I wasn't really well known at all back in, what was that, 2019 or 2018?
2018 December.
Wow.
So I would have been like
couple of months in, yeah.
Because you had the Godfather, you had Conrad Thompson and Bruce Pritchard, Cody and Brandy. You had a few like the indie talent, and it was quite a good show.
It was an excellent show.
Who would you say your Mount Rushmore is for professional wrestling?
Wow. Okay.
I asked that all my guests.
Hit me with the hard ones, Jordan. Why not? Crikey. Let's have a think. Oh, wow. Okay. I think Daniel Bryan has got to be on there for me, and I'm saying purposefully Daniel Bryan, not Bryan Danielson, because I felt that the journey that he had in WWE from when I first saw him in 2010, when he was part of NXT, or I think he was part of season 1 of NXT. Back when he was trying to make his name, but from 2010 through to him, scratching and clawing, and the yes movement, and getting to WrestleMania in 2014, and that whole journey that he took us on, that, and it was a real life story, because WWE didn't want Daniel Bryan to succeed, but the fans got behind him, and the fans wanted him to succeed, and the fans wanted him to become world champion, and the fans wanted him to headline WrestleMania, and they put WWE at the time in a bit of a corner, where they had no choice but to put him in the main event. And not only did they put him in the main event, but they put him over against Triple H, I think, in the opening match of the night, and they put him over against Batista and Randy Orton in the main event, and really kind of put him over. Unfortunately, during his WWE run, he was plagued by injuries. And like you say, I kind of saw his return match 4 years later. Not that he was out for 4 years, but he was out for a couple of years. But I saw his return match in 2018, and because I'm pleased to see him doing so well in AEW. But I don't follow the AEW product as much. But I think just for that journey that he took us on, and that I think that period in wrestling will be special to fans, and it certainly was for me. So for me, Daniel Bryan's got to be up there. How many was on the Mount Rushmore? Was it 3 or 4?
4.
4. Right. Okay. I'm tempted to say Ric Flair, because kind of, in my younger years, he was the larger than life character that really captivated me. I always enjoyed watching bad guys, villains when I was a teenager. And when I really started getting into wrestling, which was around 1991, 1992, Ric Flair had just come over to the WWF at the time, was in a feud with Hulk Hogan, won the Royal Rumble in 1992 in what many people, and certainly myself, still consider to be the best Royal Rumble of all time. He cut that incredible promo afterwards with a tear. I got to see Ric Flair perform, at SummerSlam 92 later on that same year, and the following year at a kind of I think it was the NEC in Birmingham, when he fought Bret Hart just before going back to WCW. So I was fortunate to see him a couple of times. I met him at WrestleCon when I went over to New Orleans for WrestleMania in 2018. An incredible experience, a real kind of honor and a privilege to meet one of the greats, and certainly meet one of my favorites. But I think Ric Flair's got to be on there. 2 more that might surprise you. I might throw in a third, really, but I know Ric Flair's got a little bit of controversy because he's a little bit of a divisive figure. But another person I'll throw up there, Mick Foley, because when I was really getting into wrestling around 92, 93, I watched a lot of WCW, and when he was doing his stuff as Cactus Jack, and certainly the very, very memorable feuds that he had, especially with Big Van Vader, or Vader at the time, was just absolutely mind-blowing, and some of the things he did in WCW. And then, of course, coming over to he was afforded a lot of incredible opportunities in WWF as Mankind. His Mind Games match against Shawn Michaels was incredible. His series of matches against The Undertaker, especially when Mankind first came into WWF, was incredible. I think there was a Boiler Room match and one or two others, maybe the Buried Alive match. And then, of course, a couple of years later, they had that incredible Hell in a Cell match, which everybody remembers, which kind of cemented Mick Foley or Mankind's legacy. I was fortunate enough to meet him once again at the very same WrestleCon 5 years ago. But I think for everything the man did as Cactus Jack, coming into WWF, having the odds stacked against him, but it was his pure determination and passion, and his drive as a wrestler, And also, I neglected to mention that I was a massive, massive, massive fan of ECW growing up. And of course, Cactus Jack did a lot of cool and crazy things over in ECW, especially when against opponents like Sabu and one or two others. But whether it be WCW, ECW, WWF, Cactus Jack, Mankind, Mick Foley, loved everything that he did. So Mick Foley's got to be up there for sure. I did have another one on the tip of, I mentioned him already. Vader, Big Van Vader. And the reason why I'm putting him on my Mount Rushmore is because I consider him the very best super heavyweight ever. He certainly in his Japanese days when he wrestled for New Japan, and in his kind of WCW days, there was nobody like him. He was terrifying. He was just an absolute monster. He would maul you. He would beat you. He would just, and the first time I ever saw anybody do a moonsault was Big Van Vader. And you consider that he's probably 400 pounds. Seeing anybody, let alone a 400-pound guy, do a moonsault, just blew my mind. Absolutely blew my mind. And he didn't have the very best of runs. In fact, he had a terrible run in WWF when he came over. But I'll always remember him for doing what he did in WCW back in the early 90s and Japan before that, and just the intimidating figure that he was. But the things that he could do as a big man was just incredible, absolutely incredible. I think, I've got a few other names. Maybe honorable mentions might be Bam Bam Bigelow, maybe Sabu, maybe Bret Hart. But I'm probably going to put Scott Hall, Razor Ramon on my Mount Rushmore as number 4, to be honest with you. I first remember seeing him as the Diamond Stud, which was a bit of a diluted version of what he became in WWF. But the Diamond Stud on WCW on Saturday afternoons. And then he came over to the WWF in late 92 and started feuding with Bret for the world title. Royal Rumble 93 was when he had his first big match against Bret Hart for the world title. And just loved the attitude. I loved the swagger, the walk to the ring, the music, the moves, the fall away slam and the razor's edge. And when people do those moves nowadays, they refer to them as the razor's edge. I think he's left an imprint, a legacy on professional wrestling that will last forever. And when you think of people like Punishment Martinez was named Damian Priest in WWE in the Judgment Day. He's a huge fan of Razor Ramon, emulates him. You see the kind of the blood splatters on his gear, the blood drips, and the moves that he does. And he's such a Scott Hall, Razor Ramon, and including what he did with the Outsiders and the NWO, and that was kind of like industry changing. I think he will. And I think people underestimate how great a wrestler he was. And for a big guy, I think he was like 6'5", 6'6", close to 300 pounds, but he was muscular, had a great look. Just absolutely loved everything about him. So, what was that? Mick Foley, Ric Flair, Scott Hall, and who was my fourth? Daniel Bryan. That's a good Mount Rushmore, isn't it?
Yeah. Do you want me to tell you mine?
Go on then. Yeah, go ahead.
So for mine, I'll give you a few honourable mentions as well. I feel like when it comes to Mount Rushmore, it all depends on your 90s, 2000s, 80s. It depends for the generation and stuff. But for me, I'm a 2000s growing up. But I still like the old classics, and I appreciate the classics from what they are and the characters. And because if it wasn't for them, there would be no, say, for example, Roman Reigns, John Cena, Edge. There'd be none of them. So my Mount Rushmore consists of, it's like a mixture. So the first one I'm going to go for is AJ Styles.
Nice.
As in the sense of one match, what AJ Styles automatically got me hooked onto him was the match where he had the triple threat match with Samoa Joe and Christopher Daniels. It was TNA's first 5-star match. And
Brilliant.
that's what got me hooked. Just the way he could move, the way Samoa Joe could move is like, I won't call him a super heavyweight, but he's like a heavyweight-ish guy.
Yeah.
He even Christopher Daniels, that match, you couldn't say anything bad about it. It's just the way they move, the way they've got chemistry, the charisma. It's like they're telling a story. And it's that what got me hooked. And then, he just got even better. He won the world title, and then he was paired with Ric Flair. Then it was Fortune. Then he left, came back, grew a beard, grew his hair. And then he had his New Japan Bullet Club run, which was unbelievable. His matches with Okada. The one with Shinsuke at Wrestle Kingdom, that was unbelievable. It's just a shame that WWE tried to recreate it and then had a lot of hype, but then it didn't live up to it. The match was good. It could have been better in my eyes. And so hats off to AJ Styles. He's my first pick. Another pick I'm going to say. He died really young when I was quite young as well. Eddie Guerrero.
Right.
Eddie Guerrero, when I watch clips of him on the network or YouTube or anywhere, you can't help but just burst of laughter with him. And he was just so humble, from what you could tell. Humble guy. He had his problems, but then he came back and he won his family back. It's like a little story he had. He was so humble. The character was good. The lashing and steel. The fans loved him. Great moves. One memory that I have of Eddie Guerrero was when he won the championship off Brock Lesnar. That was like no way out. If you were there then, you would have wanted to be there for that night, because that's like a little Daniel Bryan moment, I would say, back then, because you wouldn't expect a little guy to win the big one, you would call it. And
yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And he prevailed.
That was a great match as well. A really fun match. And I enjoyed that one too, for sure. Told a great story.
Yeah, and what I found out from what I've read, before he died, I think a week later he should have faced Batista for the world title, and he should have won that match. From what I've read, and Chavo said it in an interview, he should have won that match. So that would have been interesting, because Batista was injured at the time. So that was like, what if? It's one of them what if moments.
Yeah, he had his demons, didn't he? And let's say his issues took over.
Yeah, so that's my number 2. Number 3, I would say, because he's still consistent to this day, good promo, just all-round good guy. I mean, he's having his controversy at the moment, but every wrestler's got some sort of controversy in the world of professional wrestling at some stage. I would say Chris Jericho.
Yeah. Good
Chris
choice.
Jericho, the way he reinvented himself when he went to AEW. In fact, even before that, when he went to New Japan for his match with Kenny, unbelievable. And then AEW started, and he's just been one of the key characters ever since the promotion started.
Yeah, and I think that's when you look at kind of people that have, had longevity in the business, the Undertaker and Chris Jericho. It's because they've had that ability to spot an opportunity, reinvent themselves, and I suppose like Madonna was always great at reinventing herself. People like Jericho did the same, and there's probably about 12 different versions of Chris Jericho over the years. But that's what's kind of kept him relevant and successful through to today, of course. Yeah, agree with that choice. Very good.
And another one I would say is Kurt Angle. I would say the way he could move in the ring, and just no matter what opponent he had, he would always try to bring the best out of the opponent and the best match that he would put on. 2 matches that spring to mind. In fact, 4 matches I'll say that spring to mind, which I would say that are some of his best. WrestleMania, I'm going to say 20 with Shawn Michaels. I think that is such an underrated match. such a good match. Two different chemistries, two different styles come together, put on an instant classic. Number two, I would say, which should have been a match at WrestleMania, was the No Way Out match in 2006. I'm going to say 2006 with The Undertaker. I think that should have main evented WrestleMania or gone on WrestleMania. That was a good match as well. So Shawn Michaels, The Undertaker. I would say in TNA, his match with just any match he had with AJ Styles, unbelievable.
Yeah.
And I would say the match that he had with Samoa Joe when he first came in, I think that's pretty good match.
Yeah. Shall I tell you my favourite Kurt Angle match? And it has to be. It's a very much celebrated match, but a little bit underrated as well. Because, like you say, when people think of Kurt Angle, they think of his matches with, Samoa Joe and Shawn Michaels. But I loved Kurt Angle's match against Shane McMahon in King of the Ring. Was it King of the Ring '99? Yeah. It was. I don't know if it was billed as a street fight, but it certainly turned into a street fight when they were suplexing each other through glass and off tables, and it was just violent. But once again, it told this wonderful story, and I think that you had two fantastic individuals. Shane that was prepared to take the bumps, Kurt Angle that just kept throwing these moves at Shane. It's just a wonderful match. But that's my favorite. That's my favorite Kurt Angle and Shane McMahon match. To be honest with you, I think that was from King of the Ring '99 or around about then. Somebody will correct us.
And then one honorable mention. I'm just going to throw it out there is Will Ospreay. Will Ospreay is like the all-round wrestler that you want, as in good on the mic, great arsenal of moves, can put on a match pretty much with anyone. I mean, these matches with Okada, Shingo, Jericho, just anyone pretty much. And the matches that he's going to have with, in fact, one of his match with Orange Cassidy at Forbidden Door, I want to say 22. That was a good match. I really like that.
Yeah. Yeah,
and
I mean, the unique thing about Will Ospreay, and I remember seeing him for the first time getting on for 10 years ago now at an indie show over here in the UK, and I don't think Will Ospreay will be fully appreciated until after he's retired. He's probably produced more 5-star matches than anybody ever. And pretty much he can put together a 5-star match with just about anybody at a drop of a hat. But I don't think his brilliance will be fully realized until he's packed it all in. And I think he's only like 30. So he's still got many years ahead of him. But unfortunately, his kind of like, aerialistic style in the past means that he's had to kind of adapt and go to a slightly more down to earth style, but still absolutely brilliant and better than just about anybody else in the world. But I think it'll probably be for a few years before people really. I think when he's retired, everybody will be putting Will Ospreay on their Mount Rushmore, but it won't be until then that people realise exactly how great he is, what matches he put on, and the legacy he's going to leave. Wrestling, and I think his best is yet to be seen, amazingly, and I think that we're going to see a tremendous year now that he's joined AEW, and I've got tickets for All In at Wembley in August. So I'm looking forward to seeing what part he plays in that show. But honestly, hand on heart, I think he's definitely inside the top, 5 best wrestlers in the world right now. But I don't think he'll be fully appreciated until after he's retired.
Do you know what, John? I agree with you on that one. I really do. He's just all round. He's even a nice guy in person as well. I can't even express how good he is. He's that good. He's one of them. You lost for emotions and stuff.
Well, I saw him. I've seen him perform quite a lot over the last couple of years, and Obviously, I work alongside Progress. I'm always at their shows, and he was there for Super Strong Style last year, 2023. Had some incredible matches. I saw him perform at Royal Quest 2 against now who I think it was
Saber Junior.
no, it was against Shingo, I think, at Royal Quest 2. But I also saw him pretty much a year ago for Rev Pro at the Tram Shed in Cardiff. And he was in the main event against Big Damo, put on an absolute clinic, an absolute classic between the two of them. But after the match and after the show, all of the fans congregated around the ring. They all wanted a photo opportunity and their moment with Will Ospreay. And to echo what you just said and to back up your point about what a nice guy he is, he spent the next 45 minutes after his match with Big Damo, he spent the next 45 minutes having selfies, having photographs with every single fan that stayed behind. He loved every single second of it, being around the fans. I had my photo taken with him, with my friend that I went along with. But just to back up what you said, not only is he a world-class performer in the ring, he's world-class outside of the ring as well.
He's, like you mentioned as well, he's going to be, when he's retired, he's going to be everyone's Rushmore, and that's for a fact.
100%.
So let's talk about, we've talked about you when your journey up from starting wrestling with Johners. Let's talk a little bit about the podcasting network now. How did that come about, and what made you want to start a network?
A really, really good question. And there's a really kind of interesting story behind this. And obviously, I think one thing that I appreciated starting my own show, Wrestling with Johners, is that it's not easy. I'm sure, as you can, testament, starting your own show, getting it off the ground is not easy at all. It's a lot of hard work. I found it a lot of hard work, and I appreciated what it was like as a grassroots podcaster. I kind of learned on my own. I just learned by making all the mistakes under the sun as well. I kind of across some kind of wrestling friends along the way, and I think that's one thing that podcasting definitely does, is it introduces you to a lot of people that you wouldn't have been introduced to before, like me and you, for example. And you get chatting and this, that, and the other. And what I did, certainly in the first year or so of Wrestling with Johners, and I mentioned it earlier, I would occasionally have some wrestling friends drop onto the show to help me review NXT or to help me review AEW or a WWE pay-per-view, whatever it might be. And then my initial thought was, I need a website to put my show on. Obviously, my show was already on YouTube and all the audio platforms. So I thought, let's put together a little website, wrestlingwithjohners.com. All my episodes will be up there. Maybe I can put there, who knows? But then I thought, well, I've got the website now, a really good opportunity to get some more shows up there. But I didn't want to go for the obvious. I didn't want to, reach out to established shows straight away. I thought, well, I've got some wrestling friends, got the same passion, same love for wrestling like I do. I'll reach out to them, give them an opportunity to start their own show, and I'll help them start their own show. I'll help them brand it. I'll help them come up with logos. I'll help them, with, downloading things to record and, give them tips based on my, very formative knowledge at the time. And before I knew it, there was about 3 or 4 of the shows that I helped to kind of get off the ground of mine, and I said, look, I've got this place where we can kind of promote and display, a little bit of a platform for your new show, and we'll kind of start a little bit of a family, start a little bit of a community, and see where it goes. So essentially, the Johners Podcasting Network was me and some men, gave them an opportunity, gave them a bit of a leg up to start their own shows. And before you knew it, I had maybe 4 or 5 different shows on there. Some of them are still in existence, some of them aren't. And I thought, well, this is good fun. This is good fun. And kind of reached out to a few more established shows and got them on board as well. Before you knew it, I probably had about 12, 15 different podcasts, different shows on there. The beauty of the John's Podcasting Network is it can handle YouTube content. It can handle Apple and Spotify content. So it kind of opened the doors to people that either only had video or only had audio. Yeah. It didn't matter. And then the John's Podcast Network kind of grew and grew and grew, but it always had the kind of the fundamental basis behind it, that it was there to help support newer shows, grassroots shows, shows that were just getting off the ground, that I could either help establish or help give tips and advice to, but more importantly, give a platform to. And I think one of the biggest aspects of the John's Podcasting Network is that we massively promote every single channel that's on the network. We massively promote any new content that drops on all of our social platforms, so whether that be Facebook, whether that be X, whether that be Instagram. We promote, we share, we really get every single new episode of new content out there, really shout and celebrate the great work that they're doing. And what's happened is that we've got a lovely little family of shows now. I think we've had about 4 new shows join us in the last few weeks, 5 if you include yours, and I think there might be a few others. We've probably added 4 or 5 new shows in the last 2 or 3 weeks, so more joining, because we've just done a little bit of a campaign to get more people on board, and I've had
I saw that. I shared it.
Big response. So I think we are at a stage now where we've got over 30 active channels from all over the world, including some of the more established, more well-known wrestling podcasting names out there. We've got probably another 20 or so inactive that kind of haven't produced content for a while, but their content is still up on the network, that you can go back and check out some of their classic interviews or classic pay-per-view reviews or whatever they might be. So you're talking well over 50 channels are on board the John's Podcasting Network. We're getting content on there from wrestling promotions. So not only do we host a platform for podcasters and typical podcast content, you might say, but also wrestling promotions are reaching out to us, and they've got channels on there now, like Lucha Libre and Laughs, a promotion based in Denver, Colorado, who produce their wrestling shows out of a theater in Denver. And Lucha Libre and Laughs is a mixture of pro wrestling and comedy, where they got comedians that produce the play-by-play and the commentary over the speakers, so the live audience gets to hear the comedians do the commentary, which is truly unique in the middle of these fantastic matches. And more recently, we've had United Wrestling, a UK promotion based down the road in Oxford, and they've been going for about 3 or 4 years, but more seriously in the last couple of years, producing some wonderful shows. And there's no barriers, no boundaries to United Wrestling, where quite often they would have shows just stacked with intergender matches and male versus female, female tag teams versus male tag team. There's no boundaries, and it's completely inclusive. So I love that, and more wrestling promotions have already reached out. But I think if you think back to the kind of the seed, the genesis, the idea behind the John's Podcasting Network, and it was really just to help content creators, help podcasters have a little bit of a platform, give them a bit of an opportunity, help to promote, share, the love for what they do, the passion for what they do. Because let's be honest, you've got to be committed to do a show like you do and to do a show like I do. And for as long as I've been doing it, for sure, you've got to have a love, have a commitment behind it. It can't be something that you kind of do 1 week and then not the next.
No, but I agree on that.
With my show, I've been doing it solidly. I haven't missed a week in over 5 years, and that's something I'm very, very proud of. But that's not an easy journey, and I know that there's hundreds of other stories similar to mine and similar to yours, and it is a grind. There's no money in it, but I'm kind of providing a platform and a space and a website that's growing and get a bit of a name, getting a bit of a reputation behind it. And like I say, giving that platform to content creators and people that not just want that platform and that bit of extra promotion, but those that are really passionate about what they do. And I'm kind of happy and proud to provide that little bit of a platform to help them along.
I mean, that's a truly an amazing story and everything. Like you've just said, I'm very fortunate to be a part of that small community of family. And since I've been on, you mentioned about you've not missed a week since the 5 years that you've been in existence, like the channel and the podcast. With me, I started it back in May last year. with my first guest, being Alex Zinn. And to be honest, it was one of them 2020. Just a little story here now. I know we're going off topic, but sorry, just a little story. So 2022 and 2023 was a bit for me. So I decided to find a little passion. I've always been a wrestling fan, and I've always wanted to. I've met wrestlers, but I've always wanted to do what you're doing. I came across yours last year and in 2022, but I never actually reached out. So I knew what StreamYard was, so I thought I'd try and do my own little thing. So I had Alex Zane, I had Martin Stone, I had a few others, but then I thought, do you know what? It's not getting the views, it's not getting the likes, it's not this, it's not that. Do you know, all these doubts and thoughts and everything that you get in your head? Because the mind's a very dangerous thing. When you get these doubts in your head, you don't want to start doing things, or you don't want to start trying to push yourself, this, that, and the other. So I thought, nah, leave it. So I did the odd interview now and again. So I thought, do you know what? I had some good news in December. Everything's looking up. So I thought, do you know what? F you. I'm going to do this, get cracked at it full time. I reached out to you. I showed you what I've done. You was quite impressed that I had Bobby Fish and all these other ones on.
Yeah.
And then you offered me the chance to come on to the podcasting network. And I was like, do you know what? This is a sign here. Let's go for it. And then I think since then, I had Billy Wood for IWN Network. I had Lloyd, INOIE. I've had, who else did I have? Natalie Sykes.
Lee McAteer.
Yeah, Lee McAteer, the co-owner of Progress. I've had you now. Tomorrow, I've got Mad Dog, Mike.
Great guy.
I've got Lance INOIE tomorrow. I think, who else I've got? I've got Royce Isaacs on the 13th of February. And then I've got the next person who I'm going to announce now to you is Jacob Fatu.
Wow, mate, you're killing it. You're absolutely killing it.
So
we're really, really proud of from when you first reached out, and I could tell that you were, a little bit nervous, a little bit unsure. But I think what I really like about your channel is that it's not just about wrestling, isn't it? It's about your kind of your love for traveling, your love for holidays, and it's quite strange. I think I went on my first cruise last year, and I think we went on kind of like the brother and sister ship, didn't we? I think I went on the Discovery 2, and I think you went on a holiday on the Morella Discovery, didn't you, or something like that?
Yeah.
But similar cruise ships. And like you say, we're at Fight Forever together over 5 years ago, and that was a tremendous show. So we've kind of crossed paths. Paths. I really like the mix of your travel videos in there and the wrestling interviews. I think it does give it a nice blend. They complement one another really, really well. But what really came across to me about you was your passion for doing what you're doing. You just needed a little bit of reassurance that you're doing the right thing and a little bit of guidance here and there. But I think more than anything, very, very impressed with the guests that you had from the very beginning, and some of the guests that you've had. January has been a tremendous year for you, and what's going to be a brilliant 2024 for you. So keep up the good work, my friend.
I took a bit of advice from you, as in plan your guests in advance and try and. So I've got. Do I announce it? No, I'll tell you after. I've got someone else.
Save it for another occasion. Tell me off air. I'm really interested to know. But looks like Jacob Fatu. That's a big one. But like I say, you slowly working your way through the NOIA family and the Samoans. But you're doing a great job. Doing a great job.
I mean, look at yourself as well. I mean, look at March and February who you've got. Eddie Dennis, Alexis Falcon.
Yeah.
You've got Scotty Rourke. I mean,
got some big names. And I mean, January was pretty stacked, and Nightshade and Tommy Lawrence and Miles Kane and various others, Brandon Lee, Axel Carter yesterday. But let's say a real broad mix of British indie talent from all over the country. And I can see that you're kind of getting similar names on your show. But for some reason, you invited me. Who am I?
You're the reason why all this happened. One other person I've had who I didn't say is Tate Mayfair's.
Oh, now he's a character.
Funny enough about that one, though, that interview, it got on the dirt sheets.
Tell me about it.
Yeah, so I reached out to Tate, and you do the talk about it, the date, time, everything, and we set it up. We did it. He was in character. I shouldn't have said that, but no, all around nice.
He's always in character. When is Tate Mayfair's not in character? I've never spoken to the guy when he's maybe I have, but he's 99% in character.
One thing
that's why he's so good.
Very nice guy, guy. 100%. And I also had a cameo appearance from the TNT title, which that was very nice. And to be honest, we put it up. We mentioned Will Ospreay because he had a match against Will Ospreay last year at Super Strong Style 16 for Progress, and he was. What was the word that he said? William Ospreay rubbed off him or something. He's like got the rub. I don't know. I'd have to get it up.
I know what you mean. That yeah, sure.
Yeah, I went to sleep because I was at work the next day, and I got a DM off him on Twitter saying that we made the dirt sheets, and then I checked it and I was like, no way. but like I said to you earlier, do you know? I started back in December, properly back up. And that's probably what my third, fourth, fifth interview back in. We're not here for the dirt sheets. We're not here for the this. We're not here for that. We do it because we love it and the passion. But just to see that something made the dirt sheets from someone, I was like, wow, someone's actually seen it. Someone's actually seen it. And they reposted it and do you know what I mean? And my channel got mentioned, and it felt like warm-hearted, and it's like a sign saying that I'm actually doing something right in my eyes.
100%. But I did see kind of the follow-up to that, and I do check X every so often, and I did notice that as a matter of fact. So congratulations, my friends.
Thank you.
That's the first of many successes to come, I'm sure, but it's always nice when you kind of get a mention from other articles or dirt sheets, shall we say, and I've had similar in the past with some of my guests, and it's always nice.
I'll announce one more guest. I'll announce someone from March. So this person is quite. Do you follow Sean Ross Sapp, if I've said that right?
Sean Ross Sapp from the main guy behind Fightful.
Yes. Funny enough, Fightful was the one that reposted with Tate Mayfair.
Yeah.
He exchanges words sometimes or has a bit of banter with Shazza McKenzie. So March 20th, I will be having Shazza McKenzie on the channel.
Well done. That's another big name. A good get there. And I know that Shazza was absolutely everywhere around 2017, 18, 19, but it's been a little bit off the scene in the last couple of years. I certainly haven't seen a lot from her in the last couple of years, whereas before she was everywhere. But it sounds like she's kind of getting out there a bit more, becoming a bit more active. And it'll be awesome to see her on your show. I can't wait to watch that one back.
Yeah, that will be good. Is there anything you would like to say, or where we can find you, your socials or anywhere?
Well, firstly, I just want to say thank you so much for having me on your show. It's been a real pleasure, a real honor. And like I say, it's been great getting to know you, and a real pleasure having you and your channel on the Johners Podcasting Network. Speaking of that, you can see Women Travel and Wrestling with Johners on the Johners Podcasting Network, which is simply at wrestlingwithjohners.com. Or download it via Google Play Store. But you can just find me on whatever socials you're on, Instagram, X, Facebook. Just search Johners or Wrestling with Johners, you'll find me. And likewise, all of my content, whether it be Spotify, Apple, or more importantly, as Jordan mentioned earlier, on YouTube. We're very, very close to 1,000 subscribers. So if you like what you heard from me today, then go and check out all of my content, my 5 years worth of content over at Wrestling with Johners on YouTube. But thank you so much for having me on as a guest. And yeah, it's been a real pleasure and a thrill for me to be interviewed by you, Jordan. Well done.
Thank you, Jonas. I do really appreciate you coming on. All the best.
My pleasure.
Cannot wait for your interviews coming up in March and February.
There we go. It's going to be good.
Cannot wait. Thank you.